Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Reserve Team podcast, your home of all things Australian and New Zealand football. My name is Branson Gibson. I am your host once again this week, and on today's episode, there is plenty of football to talk about. We'll take a look at all the latest games from the W League and the A League, and later on, we'll also discuss our favourite and least favourite moments of the season so far. Joining me this week, I have two very special guests. First up, from the Ladies League, we have Rose Valente. Hello, Rose. How are you?
Hi, Bran. How you going?
Doing very well. I'm a big fan of the Bruised Banana Arsenal shirt. Mad respect for wearing that one this morning.
Brought my A game for you.
Absolutely, mad respect. And joining us, as always, on the podcast, we have Sean Matheson. How are you, Sean?
Yeah, doing well. Excited to talk about football, and I'm just a big fan of Rose in general, so this should be a good week to cover off all things A-League and W-League.
Absolutely.
So happy to have my biggest fan here today.
Yeah, I know. I need to get a Rose hero shirt. That's going to be the next thing that we have to get going on the merchandise store.
Hopefully this week as well, everyone, my internet is working better, so that hopefully should make the podcast run a little bit smoother. I shouldn't be too delayed. I shouldn't be talking over the top of people and interrupting people randomly. So this should be smooth sailing from here. We got plenty of games to talk about, guys. 10 games that we're going to discuss. What we're going to do is start off with the W League, and taking a look back last week, Perth Glory taking on Adelaide United. Adelaide won 2-1. Fiona Warts and Emily Condon scored for the Reds, while Caitlin Douglas found the back of the net for Perth. Rose, you were quite critical of Perth in our W League episode when we were talking about them in our power rankings, describing them essentially as a glorified NPL side. What did you make of Perth in this one, and then what did you make of your Reds as well?
Well, I've been Team Perth as much as I can be for the underdog, but I've also been realistic that I'm not too sure how well they will do this season, and this might just be another season that hopefully with, because their manager Alex Aparkis only started, back in December of last year. So, and this isn't really his team. So I'm hoping that this is the new Perth Glory. I think last season was supposed to be the new Perth Glory, but now with the new manager, I think this is just probably his training season. I'm hoping that by next season, he has his full squad and they're really, at full throttle. But for now, I think it's just about seeing the best that they can do with their little NPL team. And they put up a really good fight against Adelaide. Adelaide played exactly how I hoped Adelaide would the game before on leg one against Perth Glory when that was at home to Adelaide, and they lost to Perth. They only just won by Condon's penalty, and in my eyes, I was like, that's practically a loss because even though we got 3 points. So yeah, this one was really good to see. It was great to see the Adelaide team playing like I wanted them to. Condon missed a sitter early on. Thankfully, she got herself a goal to redeem herself, because I think she would have been kicking herself the whole flight home to Adelaide for that one. Cote Rojas, Cote Rojas fan club over here. But she was once again sensational and just showing her experience. She's much older than most of the team, and I think I've been saying it since the second we got her. She's exactly what that team needed. Not only can she create an opportunity, she can score goals, but she's just got this natural talent, and I think just the maturity is shining as well, which is really good. And also shout out to Charlotte Grant as well, who ran her little legs off. She's probably taller than me. Sensational game from her, even though she got subbed off, maybe to, just because they wanted to get Hodgson on. So yeah, a good result from the girls. Really positive stuff.
Sean, what did you make of the game?
Well, I really enjoyed it, actually. I think 2-1 flattered Perth a little bit. They weren't that terrible by any stretch, but Adelaide did create quite a few chances, and it was really, I think, telling that they eventually got the 3 points. At the moment, that Rojas and Wirtz combination up top is probably my favourite one to watch in the division. I think they're playing very well together. I think Rojas drags defenders well, and it has the quality to find Wirtz. And I think Wirtz makes like really good, intelligent off the shoulder runs and in behind to try and drag defenders away and stretch defences and whatever else. So yeah, it's not a surprise to me that Adelaide are doing well. I expected a couple of teams to do better than expected. I didn't really expect, looking at Adelaide's squad, for them to be playing, as good a brand of football as they have been over the opening few weeks of the season. So yeah, so far very much enjoying them playing, and really at the moment with the league kind of relatively evenly split, as we've got some sides struggling to win games and running out of time, some sides that have underwhelmed, such as like Brisbane and City. Adelaide, I think, potentially could sneak into that top four relatively easily if they can keep consistency in their current level of performances. So yeah, credit to them and a good win.
Taking a look at the next game, it was the first Sydney derby of the season. We had Sydney taking on the Western Sydney Wanderers. The Sky Blues running out 2-0 winners, Mackenzie Hawkesby and Ellie Brush scoring for Sydney FC. Rose, you were at this game. What did you make of the game? And also, secondly, what did you think of the doubleheader and the W League game being after the A League game?
Yeah. Now, I know every time I come on, I always plug what I'm doing, but we covered this for an hour on the Ladies Pod, which you can find on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere else. We literally needed an hour to talk about how we felt about the attendance, that doubleheader, and all that. So a bit of frustration from myself in that there was a doubleheader, and it was 2 Sydney derbies in a row, and the girls kicking off at 7:40 p.m. And it went down from roughly 14,000 people in attendance to probably 2,000. So, yeah, it was quite disappointing to see. And given it was at Stadium Australia, it was very flat. I described it as depressing. I found it I reckon the last 20 minutes, I just sort of sat there like a lump. I didn't like it. The atmosphere was just terrible. And obviously, no one likes W League and Stadium Australia, but it is what it is during COVID, and you just deal with it. I felt sorry for the players. I feel like they needed a lot of mental strength to maintain any energy out there, because they all watched the A League game, so it sucks to see people supporting the A League and then just getting up and leaving in a COVID world where there's really not that much else on out there. So that kind of sucked. But the game itself, Sydney were dominant. Sydney FC. There was no way the Wanderers were getting through. Karmas had a good game. Courtney Newbon was sensational in goals. Remy Seamson was unbelievably unlucky to not score a goal against the Wanderers. It was great to see Ellie Brush and Hawkesby. Hawkesby got her first goal. Ellie Brush back. I believe she was injured for a period there, so it's good to have her back. Wanderers were simply outplayed.
And just very quickly, I will correct myself. I said this was the first derby of the season. It was not. It was, they of course met in week 1. It was the first A-League derby of the season. I got muddled up there, but I have caught myself out and corrected. Very quickly, we don't have an hour to discuss, but do you think the doubleheader, the W League game being after, yes or no, do you think it was better than them being filling the curtain raiser role?
I actually, from what I saw, both at the Sydney game and the Newcastle Jets game, who did the same thing, I actually can't see any difference at all, whether you put them before or whether you put them after. I think this just solidified that double headers. They just simply do not work here in our game. And while understanding the financial aspects, if we can avoid double headers, I think that's the way to go for now.
Do you think, Rose, and sorry, Bran, for cutting you off, but do you think, Rose, it would have been more successful? Is it a Sydney FC culture thing? Would this have been more successful if it was a Western Sydney home game? Because, and full disclosure, acknowledging my bias here, my initial exposure to the W League is through doubleheaders. I can't make 2 different games at 2 different venues a week, so the doubleheader games I really look forward to. And from my understanding, the highest attendances that the Melbourne City women's team gets when they have that doubleheader fixture, even if it is only like 2 or 3K, that's usually above the kind of 1,200, 1,500 that they'd average playing in Faulkner. Potentially, that will increase once they're eventually playing in Dandenong, once that gets up and running this season. But do you think this is a Sydney FC culture issue, or is this a whole of the league type deal?
Well, same thing happened the very next day at Newcastle Jets. A lot of people were saying it was quite hot out there. said before, unless it's like 40 degrees, I don't really see that as a reason. You're out there to support your team. Well, it was at Stadium Australia, and that is west of Sydney. It's Western Sydney territory. I reckon there were more Wanderers fans there for the A-League game. It felt like a Wanderers home game, and I'm used to going to Wanderers home games at that stadium. So, to be honest, I think regardless, I don't think it does have to do with Sydney FC. I always see really good turnouts and great atmosphere at local Sydney FC games, especially Cromer Park is a good one for Sydney FC. But no, I don't think it's to do with the club itself. I think that this showed me that A-League fans aren't necessarily the W League's demographic. In a majority, obviously, there's still going to be plenty of A-League fans who are into it. But if you're trying to get more fans, I'm starting to think maybe W League needs to start looking at your AFLW or, other areas of certain demographics so they can introduce, because I guess A-League fans aren't it.
The fascinating part, and we don't really get this detail out of like the PFA reporting or anything, but I would love to eventually somehow find out what the cost differential is to operating two different venues at two different days, two different times, compared to operating Amy Park as the example, Stadium Australia here for like a 5-hour period for the two matches. If there's like some cost benefit to it, I wonder if that's driving clubs to make this decision, or if they just feel there's like a pressure to try and get more families accessible to games. I'd love to know what the rationale and understanding is, both from the league fixturing it and then also for the clubs that kind of book these scenarios and these dates. But
I would make a safe assumption it's purely financial. But with saying that, just a quick on how it feels as a purely W League fan going to one of these. I've been to watch my team play when it hasn't been my team playing both games, so I've only wanted to go attend the W League game. It's terrible. You don't even get your own name or picture or anything on the ticket, or it's there in small writing. You have to pay an arm and a leg. I went to a game once that was a 7 p.m. Adelaide United were versing Newcastle Jets, and at McDonald Jones Stadium, and dead set, I think none of the security knew that there was a W League game going on. I nearly got locked out of the stadium. I struggled to buy a ticket. I had so much difficulty actually attending that W League game. It was a terrible experience. I try not to talk about it because I don't want to put that all on Newcastle Jets. I think that's just to do with the W League and how double headers have been publicised. But yeah, you would have no idea. You would dead set, if you weren't myself who's so in the know with the W League, you would 100% think that you had the wrong stadium that day.
Taking a look, sorry guys, I wasn't sure if you were. Again, I've got post-traumatic stress disorder from last week.
You know what? We should acknowledge actually for everybody that listened last week, you were an absolute trooper because we were all just laughing at you and giving you no support whatsoever. But you did. You were a thorough professional. Your growth as a host over the opening 13 weeks of this podcast has been absolutely immense. So yeah, you definitely need a shout out. I've got too many things to nominate for the Hall of Fame, so you aren't going in this week, but maybe in future weeks we'll look back around on that. But you did a great job, mate. Don't stress.
No, that's right. I did have a little bit of PTSD. I wasn't sure if it was the right time to jump in or not, but I'm taking my opportunity now. Of course, that win for Sydney, they have won all 3 of their games. They sit atop the W League table. Another team that we thought would be sitting atop the W League table at this stage based on our pre-season predictions. They are undefeated. However, they have 4 draws. That is Brisbane Roar. They played out a 1-1 draw with the Newcastle Jets. The Jets took the lead in this one. Tara Andrews scored in the first half before Emily Gelnick pulled one back for Brisbane in the second half for a 1-1 draw. Sean, what's going on at Brisbane? There was a lot of hype about them pre-season. I think you predicted them to come up top. Your prediction is doing better than mine of Melbourne City being really, really good. So I look more of a fool there. But what's going on at Brisbane?
Look, the same issues that we called out, I think, week 1 after the City game and have called out since. Like, they just really don't have that finishing forward to kind of make the most of their chances. They're in each of the games they've played, and I have seen all 4 of their fixtures, they've been on top in terms of the possession. They've been in top in terms of like the general play and dictating the pace and tempo because they've got that quality. But the reality is, like, they've only scored 2 goals, and that's what kills them. They've conceded 2 as well. Grace Mars is an absolute worldie. You're not going to really hold that one against them. Newcastle's goal, they couldn't do anything about that either. But they've only scored 2. And for a side with the quality that they have in their lineup, they should be finishing off teams a lot better than they have. Again, it's a similar story, actually, to what we spoke about with the Adelaide and Perth game, where Adelaide kind of gritted through it and got their goals that their play deserved. Brisbane just aren't able to do that at the moment. They can't really grind out these difficult wins when teams drop off and make it difficult for them. So, yeah, I think a big challenge, and we're already for them now, a third of the way through the season. So really, they need to start picking up 3 points as quickly as possible, not just to get back towards the title picture. They are still undefeated, it should be said, 4 straight draws, but if they want to get into the top 4, gaps are going to start opening up if they don't start picking up 3 points relatively quickly. So, interesting couple of weeks ahead for Brisbane, and huge credit to Newcastle for continuing to put up a fight and do the stuff that we've praised them for over the last few weeks. They are definitely going out to try and have as much of a crack as possible this year, so give them credit as well.
Rose, what have you made of Newcastle? Taking a look back at last week, they took the lead surprisingly against Sydney. They were very admirable in that performance. You look at this one again, they take the lead against a strong Brisbane side and then hold on for a draw. What have you made of the Jets so far?
Yeah, actually, I'm really enjoying them. Even though they're, lower of the table, they don't have, those big names of Gilnick, Polkinghorne, Yallop. I'm still really enjoying Newcastle so much that Michelle and I have decided to take an impromptu drive to Newcastle this Saturday to watch Newcastle Jets against the Wanderers. We know supporting the team, we're probably going to join the Newcastle Jets supporters to go against the Wanderers. That's how much I'm enjoying their football. I think it's really good. I think, they're a bit of a middle table sort of team overall this season. They may not get too high up. They probably will not reach finals, but they're still so enjoyable. And the fact that they were able to put up such a fight against Brisbane Roar, I don't know the actual stats, but I feel like just from watching it, they had a majority of the possession. They took so many shots. Sunny Franco was absolutely unlucky not to get a goal. She was working on it. And my fantasy team is called always Sunny and Franco, so I need her to score goals. But that's okay. I'm sure she'll come around to it. Give her time. But yeah, Tara Andrews, an absolute boss. It's at this rate, Tara Andrews is going to get them to the end of the season.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not all doom and gloom for the Jets, which we might have predicted earlier on in the season. They're definitely holding themselves in good stead so far. The last game that we're going to talk about is the Melbourne Derby. Melbourne City rebounding from a 6-0 thumping to beat the Victory 3-2. Alexandra Chidiac and Claudia Punj scored for City to give them a 2-0 lead. It looked like it might have been a mirror, not a mirror image, I don't know what to call it. The opposite, of the result last week when the Victory barnstormed. When Melbourne City went up 2-0, you're like, here we go. It's going to be the reverse. I think that was the word I was looking for, not the opposite.
Can somebody buy Bran a thesaurus?
Well, I'm pretty good with words, generally speaking. And then we go there and you go, no, that's not the one. Anyway, moving on, powering through it. Mindy Barbieri and Catherine Zimmerman scored for the Victory to pull it back to 2-2 in the second half. It was anyone's game from there, but Harriet Withers for Melbourne City found the winner in the 86th minute. Sean, what do you think of this one? A pretty good rebound performance from Melbourne City, considering what happened the week before.
Yeah, I've got to hold my hands up because I was very critical of Rado Vidicic and kind of highlighted, I think, in our power rankings last week that I didn't really back him that much as a coach. Based on what he had in front of him, but he got the perfect response out of his team. So I've got to give him a tremendous amount of credit as well and kind of not take back what I said last week, but definitely give him credit for shutting me up. And then the other one I need to shout out is Alex Chidiac. What an absolute superstar she's going to be if she can continue playing at this level throughout the rest of the season. We mentioned last week that she came off the bench and looked kind of lively in that 6-0 defeat, but she changed the game. Her goal was superb. 86 minutes in after not being in the country and not out of quarantine that long, she was still running the length of the pitch and playing in Harriet Withers for the winner. So just a stellar performance from her. Hopefully someone that we get to see the best of, and hopefully someone that can put their hand up for both the Olympics coming up and also for Matilda's squads, because I very much enjoyed her performance. Are we going to talk about the negative aspect of this part, or should I let Rose go first?
Well, I was going to talk about the game first, then we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Rose, you were super, super critical of Melbourne City last week on our W League episode. You tore them to shreds. You thought they deserved to be at the very bottom of the power rankings based on their 6-0 defeat. What did you make of this one? Did Melbourne City earn a little bit more respect? And also on the flip side, what did you think of the victory?
Yeah, my initial thoughts upon watching the end of, or the last goal, Melbourne City's winner, I was just like, oh, fuck, they're going to let me have it on the reserve team, aren't they? I'm eating my words. Happy to do so with such a game like that. But, you know, I don't know. I still, look, you can't take away what a great performance that was by Melbourne City. You never can. But I still don't think that they're going to whip up performances like that all season. So happy to eat my words. And Chidiac is huge in, and to see Emma Checker return from injury is also a huge in. So they've got their captain back. So yeah, you know what, they could just make me eat my words. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's other teams that will go on the rise, kind of in the final third, I guess, of this season. But yeah, like, well, when you said the unfortunate incident, I thought you just meant Melbourne Victory in general. To go from 6-0 and then let you cross down, rivals beat you 3-2. But not like, you know, I'm a big fan of Gabby Garton in their goals. You know, at TLL, we've been a fan of her for probably as long as she's been in Australia. So, and before that. So, yeah, like, she's great. She's made 2 clean sheets. This is her first, you know, not clean sheet. So, yeah, you know, shout out to her that she's had a pretty good start to the season. And I guess if you're going to lose to anyone, it's going to be, you know, Melbourne City with, you know, that kind of comeback. But Barbieri's goal was like an absolute freaking sensational. Yeah, that was great stuff. It was very, very entertaining to watch. It's one of those really great football matches. But yeah, it was just unfortunate that a lot of the fans, or fan probably, singular, took all the headlines rather than what a great game that was for Melbourne City.
So what did you, let's expand on that a little bit more, because, you know, I remember when we did our W League roundtable at the start of the season, there was a lot of talk about the importance for active support at the W League, and for 80 minutes, the active support that the Victory fans were providing was great in terms of atmosphere and everything that brought to the game. So, what do you make of this incident? Yeah.
Well, yeah, and obviously, first and foremost, absolute stupid thing to do. Shouldn't be done at any football game whatsoever. It raised a good point to myself that now that the W League is becoming more popular, is that, you know, that they do play at places that aren't Amy Park, you know, so they are closer to the pitch. Fans can get rowdy. So, you know, is things like increased security something W League needs to start looking at? Because, you know, that was Michael was in very close proximity. Melbourne Victory, correct me if I'm wrong and I've missed something in the last 24 hours, but I believe they still haven't released a statement from the matter, and none of the girls from Melbourne Victory have said anything, so I'm assuming that they've also been advised not to say anything till Victory say something. In the first 24 hours, everyone in football that I know just kept saying, have they released a statement yet? Like, everyone was shocked that Victory haven't actually acted on it. PFA jumped in straight away and was just like, no, you know, this cannot happen. And I'm more than happy to look into it. I'm all for active support at the W League. And you know what? Honestly, that could have happened from any idiot anywhere in the crowd. Let's be honest. That person may not, I don't know who they were. I don't know if they were actually associated with the A-League supporter group that rocked up. It may have just been some random person. So we don't actually know. So it doesn't matter who within the stadium did that. I do know that was the A-League supporter group, as the Victory Vikings, which are the W League supporter group, were next to them. I'm not too sure if either one of those discussed with one another. I think it would be nice just to show some respect and to say, hey, we're going to be here today. Let's work together, considering the Victory Vikings are there every single game, rain, hail, shine. So, yeah, like, we do want active support. And, like, you know, Chrissy, myself, Michelle, like, we will still go to a game and we'll yell like idiots and we'll give the players that banter. And we always ask players on our pod, and whenever we talk players, we're like, do you want that? Like, do you want that kind of banter in a game? And they're like, 100%. Like, they want, and they understand, they respect it. That makes you feel like a real footballer. You know, that's what football is. Like, I say this all the time. It's not a freaking under 10s Saturday morning game. Like, this is top tier football. So you can scream some shit at a player and that's fine. Don't throw a glass bottle and don't throw dangerous shit at them. Simple as that.
Yeah, and just, full disclosure, we don't know how many people throw it. We don't know anything about it, and whether or not they were throwing the bottles at the players or at Micah or just on the field, we don't know. But regardless, it's a bad look. Sean, what was your take?
They should be banned 100%. So what we do know, let's just focus on what we do know, and what we do know is fact. The fact is, none of this fan group, and it was not the Victory Vikings, as you've already kind of shouted out there, Rose. They're credit to Victory's W League side. But this was A-League fans that didn't go to the 6-0 game the week before, so they're not really invested other than Melbourne Victory winning. Yes, it was Melbourne Victory's home derby and whatever else. You can understand why they'd want to try and get around it. But the reality is these aren't real football fans. And I think there's a differential, and one of the frustrations that comes out now is that a lot of people that are active within women's football are now going to look at the A-League fans as being something that they don't want at W League games. And the reality is you shouldn't be an A-League or W League fan. You should be a football fan, and you should be able to support your team in the right manner no matter what game level that you're going to. I hope. So there's some great angles of that active support when Barbieri smashed that free kick in the back of the box. So you can see all of them there. Find out who did it and ban them, because they don't deserve to be at A-League matches, W League matches, whatever else. It doesn't matter what level of football you're going to watching. If you're bringing effectively like a weapon, and if you're throwing a glass bottle at somebody, it's like a projectile, like you could hurt someone in day-to-day life, let alone at an active sporting event. The fact that they've put it on the field at all, whether they're just putting it there as trash or throwing it at a goalkeeper or throwing it in the goal mouth or whatever else, like that's just not the way that you behave, and it's not against the conditions of entry. The other thing that it frustrates me quite a bit, and Rose, I think you and I mentioned this to each other on Twitter, is that at this stage, Melbourne Victory haven't mentioned it. At this stage, the Victory W League Twitter account, I don't know why they have two separate Twitter accounts. That's a whole other rant for a whole other week. They haven't mentioned it at all. Even in their live tweeting of the match itself, they didn't mention the stoppage. They didn't mention why it was happening. They just went to the next chance, which I think was Zimmerman's strike at the edge of the area or something like that. So they didn't talk about it. They weren't critical of the fan base. We haven't heard a word from Melbourne Victory since. We do have to give credit to Angie Beard. I think she did put something as the W League captain on her Instagram after that. I'm not sure if it's still up. I haven't actually checked. But like for a club, and Melbourne Victory fans, by all means, savage me on Twitter. I don't give a shit what any of you think. But for a club that thinks they're the biggest in the country to behave in this manner and then do nothing to like go out and condemn that behaviour, like it just casts poorly on themselves. It casts poorly on themselves. They separate their A-League side to be the Go Melbourne Victory account, and then Victory W League needs to have its own account that it tweets from. Like that's pathetic, and that's not a football club. That's just showing where your priorities lie. And then having fans come and behave in this manner, and you don't immediately condemn it, and you don't immediately put something out there into the public to say this behaviour is unacceptable, is an absolute joke. And it's why Melbourne Victory aren't the biggest club in the league, and that's why they're not the biggest club in the country. And every time people start bringing up shit like that about trophies and whatever else, we can always reference back here a collection of events where their prioritisation is purely their A-League fans and their A-League side. So yeah, pathetic response from them and pathetic response from the fans. They're not real football fans, so fuck them, get them out of the game.
Scathing review from Sean there. Don't disagree with pretty much any of that. The main thing for me is it just makes football fans in this country look bad. The media, generally speaking, have a fairly bad rap. Football gets a bad rap, unjustly, in my opinion. But then you have stuff like this, incidents like this come up, and it becomes tricky to defend. So it just gets to a stage where you just go, football fans, like we just got to help ourselves out, rather than doing stuff like that to just make all of us look bad. But we'll wrap up the W League discussion with a very quick look at the ladder. We've got Sydney, Canberra, Adelaide, and the Melbourne Victory. In the top four, Brisbane, City, and Western Sydney occupy 5th, 6th, and 7th. And then we have the Newcastle Jets and Perth Glory down the bottom of the table. What we're going to do now, though, is move our discussion on to the A-League. So taking a look at the first game we're going to talk about is Sydney FC taking on Western United. This was the first Sydney derby of the season. I can confirm that after my mistake earlier before. Points were shared in this one, but Costa Barbarouses gave the Sky Blues the lead from the penalty spot. The lead did not last long. A mistake from Andrew Redmayne gave the Wanderers a chance to equalise with James Troisi finding the back of the net after giving away the penalty that Sydney scored from minutes before. Rose, you were at this game. What did you make of it from both sides?
Am I half asleep, or did he say Western United?
Yeah, he did, but I let him go.
Did I?
Yeah, because
no.
did. But no, that's fine.
What an idiot.
Once we eventually get to the Melbourne City Western United game, I made Bran drink pretty heavily at that match. So it wouldn't surprise me if that whole weekend has just kind of blurred together a little bit. But yeah, Western Sydney fans, by all means, hit him up on Twitter.
I just thought that there was a new Fox Sports derby.
My apology.
I was like, where are Western United now?
Yeah, somewhere the Pyro Master's just like sharpening a knife, waiting to get in contact with you, Bran.
That's right. I've got 2 mistakes on this podcast. I'm keeping track of them. Anyway, Rose, what did you think?
Yeah, so I was at that game. So I decided when I go to the Sydney Derby, I normally sit in some type of neutral territory. But given there was no active support, or, they weren't allowed to actively support. So I decided to sit with Chrissy in the RBB because I have been in the RBB a little while back when I had to be active, and I was like, this is so uncomfortable because this is not my team. Like, I was like, oh my God, I have to be active. So as much as I love being around an active support, a little bit too intense when it's not your team. But it was great, though. It was so good to be around, given, I support Adelaide and I don't live in Adelaide. I miss that sort of atmosphere a lot. So it was really good to be around football fans screaming in 48 different languages, which is what you get from a Western Sydney Wanderers game, which I absolutely love. And it was good. It was a good vibe to be around the Wanderers supporters because I think a lot of people thought they were going to lose. So the fact that they got 1 point out of it made for actually a really good vibe around the place. So it was good stuff. I do know that, what was it? Was it a beanie went down or something? I don't know. Whoever went down at one point for the penalty, for Barbarouses' penalty, Wanderers fans were not happy about that one bit.
Ninkovic.
That's it, Ninkovic. Beanie Ninkovic. What? Yeah, I don't even know where I was.
No, that's right. I've made 2 mistakes as well. It was Ninkovic who was fouled. I'm
still in 2014 or whenever the hell Avini played Sydney FC, apparently. James Troisi, it was hilarious that James Troisi scored because I feel like he's become such a meme lately. I was like, well, that happened. But no, it was a good fight from the Wanderers. I don't think anybody expected the Wanderers to get anything out of that. So I say good on them. And that are they still top of the table? I don't know. They then went on to another game and became top of the table. So good stuff from them.
Sean, what do you think of the result from a Sydney point of view? 1 win and 1 draw, only 2 games. It's still very, very early, but they haven't quite looked as invincible as they did last year.
Look, probably too early to tell. I mean, the same way that we've just kind of mentioned Western Sydney being top of the division, it was really a win and a draw, like only their second win of the season that's put them up there because we are very early on in the year. It's tough to kind of take too much from the league itself. Yeah. I do think it was a penalty. I don't know if that's my James Troisi bias negatively impacting that, but I did think it was a pen. A soft one, but still a penalty anyway. I would give Sydney credit because we know Wellington can be a decent side and we know Ufuk Talay would have had them well scouted from his time at the club and obviously coaching with Steve Corica as well. And then, a derby's a derby. Western Sydney came into that game off the back of 2 games and less of a break. So I think they're probably a bit more match fit than Sydney, who've had a bit more of a stop-start season thus far. They will catch up some games in the next few weeks. So I think in the next 2 weeks, we're probably going to learn more about where Sydney's at. But to me, early doors, it looks like they are just, doing the same stuff that they've done for the last 2-3 years, which has gotten them to a certain point. But Ninkovic is another year older. Wilkinson's another year older. I don't know if it's sustainable long term. I think they do need to start developing a plan B. And it may be Bobo. Like, I think when he comes back into the side and gets fit, they may change up their like kind of front three and do something a little bit different formation wise to what they've done previously, because there were shades of that at different points throughout the highlights of the Western Sydney game. But yeah, look, you can only give them credit. They're still undefeated, a win and a draw. Oh, sorry, 2 draws against 2 sides that I think we've all kind of signalled as being potential top 6 candidates in Wellington and Western Sydney. Isn't a bad run at all. So yeah, we'll see where they're at in 2 weeks' time, but so far so good. I think even Sydney fans would probably admit that they're doing fine at the moment. Nothing to be concerned about.
Oh, and we forgot to...
go for it.
We forgot to mention Bum Johan. I don't think... Has he won a derby yet?
No, 8 losses for Bum Johan on both sides of Sydney.
How nuts?
Wow. Actually, I should correct that. I think in 8 games he hasn't won. I actually don't know if it's 8 straight losses. I could be wrong.
I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure the tally still runs at Bum Johan hasn't won a derby, and I love it because like Wanderers were just so like good riddance when he left. So I love that spiciness to the derby.
Are we allowed to say spiciness on this podcast? Are we going to cop the same shit that the TLL pod gives out?
Is that a Fox trademark? I've been hanging around Chrissy too much. Now I'm starting to say the word spicy. I don't think I've ever said that in my life pre-2021.
No, I'm fine with it. Let's get more spice in the podcast as we can.
Great, cool. Taking a look, we are going to move on from the spice frack discussion. We are going to refocus back on football. The next game is Melbourne City taking on Western United, not Western Sydney, Western United. They won 2-1 in this one. It was United, though, who opened the scoring sort of against the run of play. Ivan Vucic, I've butchered that pronunciation. No idea how to say his name. Unfortunately, he opened the score for Western United before Craig Noon curled one in off the post to equalise. And then Jamie McLaren scored a tap-in the 84th minute to give Melbourne City the win, and that is their 5th consecutive win over Western United as well. They beat them 3 times in the regular season last year, beat them in the finals, and now they've beaten them again. Sean, you and I were at this game. It was quite a fun one for multiple reasons, but what did you make of it?
Yeah, full disclosure, we should acknowledge that like I was 10 whiskies in and I was dragging you along behind me for most of this game. But having said that, I did go back and watch the mini match to try and make sure that what I had thought during the game was correct. And look, Melbourne City's best performance so far, I think, overall. You mentioned Western United scored against the run of play. I think that's the way they were set up. I think they deliberately kind of went after set pieces. I think they isolated Vucic very well in that set piece scenario as well, getting marked by, I think, Adrian Luna at the time, and just good near post header. So give them credit. I thought City did a good job of keeping Diamante quiet, so shout out to Taras Gamolka on his first start for the club. I thought he was excellent. And I think we'll talk about this further, I'm sure, later on, but each of these sides is actually kind of playing a decent brand of football. Everybody that we've watched in the A-League all throughout these results, they're at least attempting to play the game, which I have to give credit to the whole league. So like Newcastle, who we've kind of already mentioned, Victory have only played 1 game, Western United have only played the 2. Like, everyone's still having a crack. So even at the end of the game, Western United were still chasing it, trying to get winners. Melbourne City pushed on to get their winner, and I think they pushed on again to try and get like a 3rd or a 4th. So yeah, good game, played in the right spirit, both teams going out there and trying to play a decent brand of football. So I think they'll both do well as the season continues.
Rose, did you get much of a look at this one? I don't want to throw you under the bus if you didn't, but
I will take a pass and pass this analysis on to you, Bran, because I was at the Sydney derby. But just a quick Balkan lesson. It's
of course, sorry.
It's Ivan Vucic. And you know what? My mum's probably going to tell me off. Like, Rose, that's not even right. But J's are silent, and the C should be a ch. So just one for all those Balkans out there. Just all right, I got your back.
That's the Lucy Zelic Academy of Pronunciation that the Overlord was a graduate of.
I'll just bust out my pen and paper here. So J's are silent. That's what I got to write down here.
All J's are silent. Yep, that's why people get so confused at Chrissy's last name. Because there's a J and then there's a C and then they're just like, I don't know what to do with this.
But if it's a Spanish player, it's a H.
Again, I could be...
So just ignore J's. Just ignore all J's. That'll be the easiest way to do it.
Yep. But over to you, Bran, for the analysis.
Here we go. My analysis is that Sean is not great at listening to instructions on whether people want drinks or not. I remember being at the game and he'd be like, "Oh, Bran, I'm going to go get a drink. Do you want one?" And I'd either say yes, I'll have one, and then he'd come back with 2, or I'd say no, and he'd come back with 1 anyway. And I'm like, what is going on here? I don't It got to a stage where I was like, I don't even know why you're asking me, mate. Just bring him back, whatever. But as far as the game itself goes, I agree with Sean. I thought this was Melbourne City's best performance of the season. I thought McLaren looked really good. He had a couple of chances before he scored the winner. I just thought, as far as performances go for Melbourne City, I liked it. I don't know. I don't have too much more in-depth analysis than that. We will keep it short, though, and we'll move on to the next game, which was the Newcastle Jets.
Hold on.
Alrighty. Taking a look at our next game, it was the Newcastle Jets taking on Macarthur FC. It was the second win of the season for Macarthur. Loic Puyol scored a ripper overhead goal, and Matt Derbyshire headed home from a corner for the Bulls. The Jets did pull one back after a goal line scramble. Valentino Macarthur, who hung on for all 3 points. Sean, what did you think of this one for Macarthur? The first half, I thought they looked very, very good. The second half, not so much. What did you make of it?
I could go off on a weird tangent on this. I don't think Matt Darvish is that good as a central striker when he's on his own. I think he needs someone around him. His touch is excellent. He does some very intelligent things, but I'm not 100% sold on him as being the guy to finish off the chances that Macarthur are no doubt going to create. Having said that, I do think Macarthur are trying to fit too many of their older, more established players on the park, whether they're playing well or not. I think Lockie Rose has had a lot of raps about him, and some people are treating him like he's the second coming of Harry Kewell or whatever. He's not, but he's a good player. But forcing him on the left to get Susoeta on the right doesn't seem to it impacts their flow, and it impacts, I think, their structure and build-up play as well. The reality is, though, Susoeta and Benyat, if they wanted to, they could keep the ball off most A-League 11s each week. Their quality and their link-up play is absolutely superb. So Macarthur is still a work in progress. It would be critical of me to say that I'm not 100% sold on him, but take out the bicycle kick, which isn't going to happen for them every week. I don't think they had that many other additional clear-cut chances. Credit to Nikolai Topor-Stanley and Nigel Bugard, who are both excellent A-League defenders and proving to be evergreen this season for Newcastle. They're very important to what they're doing at the Jets. For the Jets, it's just they don't have the quality in the final third. We've mentioned this before, and we mentioned it actually on our first live stream earlier this week as we watched a game that we'll talk about in a moment, Bran. But if you take out Nazarene, no one else really creates anything. If you take out Valentino Yule, they don't really have much running in behind. And then Ray O'Donovan, I don't think has played at an A-League level so far this season. He could get there still, but I don't think he's doing much to really benefit the Jets in terms of their overall play. So it wouldn't surprise me if Teddy Yengi or someone like that gets a starting opportunity in the next few weeks. That's their big challenge. Newcastle can keep teams out, but they cannot score. That's their real issue. So yeah, an interesting tussle. I think it's going to be a long season for the Jets, particularly if any of those players go down. And I think Macarthur, they'll continue to grow and continue to get better, but I do think they have some tactical things that they need to figure out to hit that elite level of A-League sides at the moment.
We'll talk about the Jets a little bit in a little bit more detail later on, because they did play a second game this week, so we can analyse them a little bit more. But Rose, what about Macarthur? I mean, they sit near the top of the table. They've got a couple of wins, but not really many super convincing performances. Are you sold on them that they're going to be up the top of the pointy end of the season, or do you think that there's still a lot more that they need to show you?
Well, I find them wildly inconsistent. I think perhaps there's just certain players that seem to be outshining more so than others. But yeah, they put on a good show in that game. I thought that was a decent game. Especially in the first half. I thought that game was going to go on for a 4-3 or something. It was looking nuts, but then sort of slowed down a bit in the second half. I guess probably because Newcastle Jets couldn't, in fact, get any attacking power beneath them. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of Macarthur just yet. I'm still quite on the fence with them. They're a bit of an old man's team, but with a couple of, key people in there. I think just a lot of the stuff I've heard over the last year about their off-field business strategies, perhaps is how to word it, has left a sour taste in my mouth about Macarthur, and I'm probably highly critical, and I'm expecting big things from them. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I just do want to throw in there is Sean sponsored by Subway?
Oh, no. Do you want me to go into the details? So this is the same cup that everyone sees every week. But I'm trying to have a focus on not doing single-use plastics. So I refill this with water, and I've been using the same cup for 3 weeks. I'm not addicted to Subway.
Any specific reason why it's Subway? You don't want to go buy, a reusable cup to use for beverages?
It's not in the room, but I have a reusable cup. I do have one. I'm just trying because I got this. I always feel tremendous guilt when I get single-use plastics. And I had Subway 2 weeks ago, and I've been trying to reuse the cup. I will eventually throw it out. I think it's getting to that point where the bottom might give out at any point. But no, unless Subway's interested in sponsoring us, and then we are happy to do whatever they want us to do for money, that's absolutely fine. I'm sure they're looking for a decent spokesman. But yeah, business opportunities, or what is it? The reserve team at outlook.com. Hit us up. See if you want to come on.
Sean eats a 6 foot long sub live on air.
Yeah, we could do the Subway player of the game and give them a 6-inch voucher, but only off the traditional menu. None of that fancy stuff with avocado or anything. But yeah, absolutely. And to close off, the MacArthur thing. I think the good comparison is they played exactly the same way they did against Central Coast, and Central Coast just being, I think, a better side and better drilled at the moment than Newcastle was the difference. So yeah, I'd kind of agree with what you're saying, Rose, about them being very inconsistent, but I think they play the same way regardless of who they're up against, and I think that's one of the lessons that perhaps they need to start figuring out in the next few weeks, because they played the same way against Western Sydney, they played the same way against Central Coast, they played the same way against Newcastle Jets, and as they play against better teams in this division, and as teams figure out their style and who to cut off in terms of the supply, I think that'll be a big issue as well. So yeah, we'll see how we go for them, and I'm pro cowbell as well. I'm just getting that out there to kind of shut down some of the reserve team Twitter that hates the cowbells.
I'm personally hate cowbell, pro for fan engagement and great metrics reasons. Yeah, I understand it from a club perspective.
I 100% support a cowbell as something unique and unique within sport, let alone football, than just another team doing the Viking clap or the Shed screaming to goalkeepers that they're shit, or vuvuzelas arriving or whatever else. The Shed will never change.
Music from 1994.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's still 1995 in the Shed. They haven't quite realised that society has evolved. They might still think it's the NSL Grand Final from back in the day.
Just very quickly on the cowbells, I totally agree. I'm a big fan. Sean, you mentioned the Viking clap. The one thing I will say about the Viking clap cowbell merge is that does not work. The clap ring the bell. I'm not a fan of that one. I think we can definitely do better when it comes to the cowbells than that. But we do have 3 more games to talk about. We'll rattle through them. The Central Coast Mariners, they lost 1-0 to the Western Sydney Wanderers. Nikolai Mueller scored in the 83rd minute to give the Wanderers the win and lift them to the top of the table. Guys, is there much worth talking about in this one that doesn't involve Matt Simon? Rose, what did you think of the incident? Ziggy Gordon goes down in the box. It looks like he sort of kicks out at him. And then as Ziggy's laying on the ground, Matt Simon bends over, points the finger and gives him an absolute spray. Surely that's the moment of the game, right?
Well, I didn't understand the kerfuffle. That's how I talk to my employees all the time. That's pretty much Sean is Ziggy, and that's me.
That would have been me if Sean kept buying more drinks. Listen, mate.
You fucking dog.
I know. The problem is that we respond positively. Every time Rose calls me an idiot, I respond like a puppy, positively. And any time I brought you a beer, mate, you responded pretty positively and drank it. So we're validating all the wrong behaviours.
Exactly.
And to be fair, it just meant that I ended up being double or triple park, but that's my own fault. Anyway, Rose, what did you think?
Well, speaking of double or triple park, yes, Matt Simon. Look, it was great shithousery from him all game. I have no idea how he was still on the pitch. I did tweet that I'll eat my hat if he doesn't get sent off by halftime, so unfortunately I did have to eat a hat. No, I didn't actually eat a hat. I have no idea how to begin with that. Don't even have an oven. But yeah, honestly, he was out for blood. Don't know what the game plan was with getting the articles all riled up, who even is Ziggy Gordon practically from Matt Simon in the media pre-game, and then he's freaking bent over yelling at him. It's well, I'm pretty sure you know who he is. Matt Simon was just a grade A dick the whole game. Should have got sent off. All for a bit of shithousery. I think it was on Bacchus that he had his elbow or whatever. one of the Wanderers players, and like I think it was like, if I recall right, Robbie Slater or some shit was just like, oh, just a little flick, and it was like practically. I was like, mate, that's not a flick. That's just a standard Matt Simon. So yeah, guy should have been off dead set. So kudos to the Mariners, just being the Mariners, I guess. Anything they can do to get a win. Unfortunately for them, they did not get the win. So good on Wanderers, though. It was great to see Wanderers happy. I don't know why I'm so pro Wanderers this season, but maybe, I feel really sorry for them. I think it's, their moment. I really like Kyle Robertson as well from the moment he arrived in Australia. So, I think he's going to do some great things with the Wanderers.
Well, that win did take the Wanderers to the top of the table, and the loss was Central Coast's
I think
first loss of the season.
We quickly need to say we love the Mariners. If you're watching Marvin, we've got to be really careful there, guys. Yeah. You don't want Marvin coming after you, Bran.
I think
no. Marvin loves Bran. Bran put Marvin in the reserve team Hall of Fame, and Marvin's like the only actual inductee we've ever had respond, including Chrissy, who works with us. She didn't respond to it, but Marvin's the one that came back on Twitter. So we are firmly in his good graces at the moment, thankfully. But yeah, we love the Mariners.
No, sorry, okay. My apologies if I talked over you. Anyway, the next game was Brisbane Roar taking on the Newcastle Jets. Brisbane winning 2-1. In this one, I'm just trying to find the goal scorer. Riku Danzaki, he opened the scoring for Brisbane off a massive deflection. Dylan Wenzel-Hall scored for Brisbane later on. Valentino Yule did equalise for the Newcastle Jets in between, and in doing so, he became the A-League's first multiple goal scorer of the season. Sean, a good result for Brisbane. Very quickly on Newcastle, though, I mean, you spoke about them before, more of the same. They've played 4 games, 4 losses. They've lost each game by 1 goal, so it's certainly not doom and gloom. I think this was another instance of them showing something in the game. They're not getting blown out of the water like we anticipated they might. It's not like they're just getting blasted every week. But from a Brisbane point of view, a good result to get.
Yeah, good away win. They weren't good. I think even... so you mentioned Valentino Yule getting his second goal. Dylan Wenzel-Hall was, again, I think their best player, and he has been a couple of times this season. He's also moved to 2 goals for the year after his goal against Victory as well. So look, not a great performance by Brisbane. I think even they'd hold their hands up and say that things didn't exactly go to plan as far as what they probably set out to do against this Newcastle side. But, they got the result. I thought watching McLaren and Wenzel-Hall together, that's going to be a fruitful partnership. So McLaren, excellent assist for Wenzel-Hall, and an excellent finish from DWH as well. So, yeah, they've definitely got some positives to work on. And I think, really, the positive of that front two is what dragged them through this game. In previous seasons, and particularly last year under Fiala, they wouldn't have won this game. They'd have drawn it. They'd have lost it 1-0 or drawn 1-1 at best. Danzaki's goal a little bit fortunate, but Brisbane were definitely the better side, and I thought deserved to get the 3 points. For Newcastle, it's kind of what I mentioned already. If they've got one of Nazarene, Yule, or O'Donovan who's struggling, there's nothing to come off the bench. Marky Petrados is not Dimi Petrados. Costa Petrados is not Dimi Petrados. The other players that they've brought on, I think Ted Ayengi is 18, 19 years of age. So, if things don't go well, they just don't have the depth in their roster to try and provide something different or something new against these teams. So, yeah, it's a tough one for Newcastle, but there aren't any of the 4 games they've played where I thought they deserved to win. So, we'll see how things go for them, and if there are any changes or if there are any young players given opportunities to try and grow and develop a little bit further. I think Roy O'Donovan needs to get dropped. That's 2 games in a row for Newcastle where at big points in matches where they really needed him to find a finish and kind of lift the team up a little bit, he's gone missing a little bit and just kind of fluffed his lines. So I think he might need a spell out of the side. And I think the longer he goes without scoring, the more frustrated he gets. Similar to Matt Simon, what we've already spoken about, I wouldn't be shocked if Roy O'Donovan gets suspended for 5-6 weeks somewhere and really leaves Newcastle in the lurch. So, yeah, I think they need to try some fresh ideas now 4 games into the season, but we'll see how they go.
Moving on to the last game that we're going to talk about. It was Perth Glory taking on Adelaide United. Of course, it was Perth Glory's first game of the season in the A-League. I don't know about you guys, but when I looked at this fixture, I said, yeah, I definitely think this is going to be an 8-goal thriller. well, maybe not thriller, but I definitely predicted 8 goals being scored in this one. The Glory winning 5-3. I have got the list of goal scorers here. I don't think we've had to read a list of goal scorers this long out. So Neil Kilkenny scored for Perth. Nick D'Agostino scored 2. Bruno Fornaroli and Carlo Amiento scored 1. While for Adelaide United, it was Nathan Constantopoulos, Mohamed Toure and Ben Halloran scoring. Rose, were you anticipating this? Perth were up 5-1 late on before Adelaide got 2 back, but what a crazy game.
Well, considering we're recording like 10 hours after the full-time whistle, I'm a little bit offended that you've even brought this game up at all. No, Adelaide weren't there. Adelaide didn't arrive in Perth. I don't know, they must have got stuck in some kind of quarantine because that was not Adelaide United. No idea who they were. Some bunch of blokes in a Macca's outfit. I mean, look, Perth Glory were good. You can't take anything away from them. And Delianov, with a stupid punching Bruno Fornaroli in the back of the head. Like, I'm sure, look, he's got a pretty punchable head. We've all thought about it, let's be honest. But to go out and do it during the game is, something else. So, from that point onwards, I was like, look, I'm all for supporting the youth. So I was like, all right, like, little mistake. It's cool. Like, keep it going, that's a maturity thing, It's just, he's young. He's inexperienced. That'll happen. But then it just all went downhill. No idea what was going on with Juric. Was even Juric even getting any balls? Who the hell knows? I tuned out for half the game and just made Simpsons memes because I was so depressed about the whole situation. But Andy Keogh, sensational. Great to see him at Perth Glory and just, doing Andy Keogh things. Because Castro, isn't even back yet. It's so funny how, Castro's not even there and they're just still this great Perth Glory. So look, for the home fans to be able to watch that, they finally got to kick off their season, and what a way. But I don't think we can... I don't want to take anything away from Perth Glory, but we can't also act like they're now going to go win the league because Adelaide United just purely sucked.
Sean, what did you make of this game? Because we were watching it while we were doing the Twitch live stream. You aren't sold on Perth. Of course, it is their first game. So full disclosure, they've had months to prepare for this. Adelaide have been playing. They've had travel. They've had other fixtures. So there's all those factors going into it. But what did you make of Perth and what do you think of Adelaide? They'd been flying, so it's sort of, a back to reality check for them. But what were your thoughts?
Look, I think Adelaide is a young team. We're going to have lessons like this that they're going to learn throughout the course of the season. I actually called when we were doing the kind of preview before the game started that Perth are going to win a lot of games 5-4, and they nearly did today or last night. So look, they definitely leave four players forward, 2 wide players, which will eventually be Castro and Economides, who are still to come back into this side. I was very impressed with Josh Rawlins, and I think it was Daniel Steins over on the left wing. I didn't see the initial lineup, but I thought they both played very well. Look, Perth are going to go absolutely gung ho, and they're going to try and score 5 goals every game. They cannot defend to save themselves because even though it was late that Adelaide got their goals, Adelaide still had chances and they were still quite open. Credit to Perth. I will be fascinated to see what Perth actually do when they start travelling interstate. I think you can be a little bit more attacking, a little bit more gung-ho away, particularly given the distance that teams have to travel to come across to HBF or NIB or whatever it's called now. Apologies if I got the name wrong. But I can't see them taking this same sort of super aggressive attacking style away to Melbourne or away to Sydney and getting good results with it. So, great game to watch. 8 goals, always fantastic. Again, credit to all the teams in the A-League at the moment that are all trying to play football and all trying to score goals. That's what we want to see for them. Perth's front 4 will be very much down to who's in the mood on the day. Economides, Castro, Keogh and Fornaroli, all excellent players on their day. If they can get them all working together, they will get some good results. Their issue is going to be defensively. I've been a big rat for Louis Dorigo over the early part of the season. I think he's been one of the better players in the comp for Adelaide, but he got absolutely towed by a very experienced quality Neil Kilkenny performance, who's effectively, he's the entirety of Perth's midfield, and whoever they put next to him is just there to do the running. So their defence is what will eventually, I think, let them down. They do have some players come back in. I don't think Sebastian Langkamp's in the country yet, but he'll be big for them. And then their fullbacks are obviously need a bit of work as well. I think Dane Ingham had an absolute howler for Adelaide's first goal. I think there was a bit of lax defending as well for the other two that they pulled back late on. So Adelaide will learn a lot from this because you can't go have your fullbacks bombing forward if they're going to leave four up top the way Perth did. And that's where they got torn apart in transition. And for Perth Glory, I think the fascinating part for them will be seeing how they set up and how their shape may differ when they're playing away from home, if they drop an extra man into midfield or if they just go hell for leather. If they do, they're going to be the most exciting team to watch every week because they're guaranteed to either score or concede a whole bunch of goals.
Yeah, well, the interesting for Perth as well is one game played and they've already scored the equal most goals in the league straight off the bat. They've scored more goals than Western Sydney, Macarthur and Newcastle Jets have scored in their 4 games played. But that does bring us to an end of the review section. What we're going to do now is take a quick break before we jump into the Hall of Fame. Alrighty, taking a look at the Hall of Fame, what we're going to do is look at the results from last week's nomination. In 4th place, we had Old Girls Gang on Instagram. They came 4th. In 3rd was Victory's 6-0 derby win over Melbourne City. Rose, you nominated that one. There was no way that was going in, even if it had won. I think Sean, as the sort of the gatekeeper of the Hall of Fame would have denied them entry, said, nah, see you later, no sneakers in here, out you go. Grace Maher's Goal of the Year contender came 2nd, which means Chrissy's nomination earns itself a spot in the Reserve Team Hall of Fame, and that is, of course, the ABC W League graphic freeze, an iconic moment already in the short W League season, very worthy of a spot in the Hall of Fame. We don't know if it's always going to sit there. It might just, hover over the entire rest of the Hall of Fame collage, but we'll see. But it certainly deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame, an iconic moment. What we're going to do now as well, though, is we're going to jump straight into our own Hall of Fame nominations for this week. Rose, I'll go to you first. Who are you nominating to join the Reserve Team Hall of Fame?
I think I'm so unsure what I want to go with, but I think in the Hall of Fame, I'm going to go with the fact that the Ladies' League clearly runs both leagues. I don't know how you're going to minimise these words into a poll, but anyway, I will continue to explain what I'm trying to say. Our website went down on the same day as the league-wide websites went down, just before, actually, maybe even 12 hours before. So I don't want to say that we run the leagues, but we may just. So that was my Hall of Fame moment, because when I thought that we were technically incompetent, I realised we're equally on par with the leagues. So I've done my job well.
Great. Sean, you are the curator when it comes to the Twitter polls, so I'll leave you to figure out how you're going to fit that into. I think it's like a 30-character limit for the polls, so I'll let you figure out how you're going to describe and condense that one. That sounds quite tricky, but a great
Overlord
nomination.
TLL.
Yeah. Sean, what is your nomination, mate?
Oh, look, I'm just going to write TLL runs football and people can listen to the podcast to figure out what the hell that we're talking about. But there's a lot to nominate this week. So I'd like 3 or 4 different things. So I'm going to hold on to them for like next week. So there was someone that made something for us on Twitter who I am going to shout out, but I'm going to do it next week because there's something that I have to address. I cannot let it stand for another week. And that is the phenomenal leg tattoo that Jackson Irvine has of Mo Sislak from The Simpsons. I didn't know he had it up until he got announced at his new club, Herbertian over in Scotland. Shout out to any Hibs fans watching. But yeah, it came out of nowhere. It's like on the front of his kind of shin area, and it's just this fantastic image of Mo Sislak strutting across the like Desperate and Dateless episode of The Simpsons. We know that both TRT and TLL love a good Simpsons reference from back in the day. The fact that he has that and he's tattooed it on his leg, arguably as a professional footballer, the most important part of his body, absolutely phenomenal. It came out of nowhere, so that's my nomination. It's Jackson Irvine's Mo Sislak tattoo.
Great. I don't think we have any Simpsons-related content in the Hall of Fame, do we?
Wow.
Not yet. It's because one of us doesn't get The Simpsons, and I'm not sure what's wrong with that kid, but we'll eventually get him sorted.
Maybe we've got to get Jackson Irvine on the pod, sort of explain it a little bit further.
Just tell him that
absolutely.
you run football. Then he'll come across for sure.
Yeah, definitely. That'll get him over the line for sure. Well, my nomination is a big one. I think it's very timely considering the weekend, but my nomination is Matt Simon. And I think he deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame because he's got a two-pronged attack. He's quite a fantastic footballer and arguably probably the most meme-worthy person in the A-League. We saw him against Ziggy Gordon on the weekend. What was it last year against the Victory? He was in a scuffle, got his shirt ripped, and then scored the penalty to win. As far as the Mariners go, he's second all time on most appearances for the Mariners. He's their leading goal scorer. Played for Sydney FC as well. He's just an angry man. He's a fantastic footballer. I think across the board, he is probably the player that best epitomizes the A-League. You know, there's general meme worthiness in there. There's some great footballing moments. There's some good technical ability, and it's just he's an absolute cult icon. So he is my nomination for the reserve team Hall of Fame. Sean will put up the you'll put up the Twitter poll once again, and we will get our listeners to vote, and we will see who will be joining our Hall of Fame.
I don't think you picked up on it, but I think the first time you said Matt Ryan and then you started talking about him scoring penalties and getting his shirt ripped and stuff, I was like, nah, that's not Matt Ryan. That's not who. It's Matt Simon is who you're nominating, right?
I definitely said Matt Simon.
All right.
I definitely might have said Western United before. I haven't even thought about Matt Ryan today. So I'm convinced I said Matt Simon.
He's on the brain, mate. Well, I think about Matt Ryan always. He's always at the back of my mind, so I get it. Maybe it was me. We'll figure it out in the edit, and $10 to the winner.
No, that's okay. But we'll be getting the big guns in. Rose, you mentioned that we love the Mariners. Let's get a Mariners player in there. We've got Marvin. We've got the sauce bottles. You know, it has to happen. Anyway, what we are going to do now is jump into our next segment, which is taking a look at our favourite and our least favourite moments of the league so far. So taking a look, it feels like a lot has happened in this short A-League season. Lots of good stuff, and W-League season, of course. Lots of good, lots of bad. So all we're going to do now is pick our favourite and our least favourite moments so far. Sean, let's go to you first. What is your favourite, and then give us your least favourite?
My favourite are the young players coming through in the league. I think the quality of play this A-League season, despite everything that was said during the off-season about departures and the overall quality of the league and all that sort of stuff, if you've watched these games, a lot of them have been entertaining at both an A-League and W-League level. I've already mentioned, like, giving credit to the clubs for trying to play a good brand of football. There's not anyone in the A-League at the moment that I would look at and say they're playing a particularly negative brand. To be fair, Victory have only played one game. But same in the W-League as well. Even Newcastle and Perth, who are sitting down to bottom of the table, they are still trying to score against teams. I don't think Perth play a particularly great brand of football, but they are trying to play. So you've got to give them credit as well for that also. So that's a big one for me. And even if you run through like each different squad in the A-League and W-League, there are some fantastically talented young players, like under the age of 21, that are real key parts of their lineups. I think for Sydney, Canberra, Adelaide, the teams up the top of the W League side of it, they've all got fantastic players. We've spoken about Remy Sampson, who we forget is still only like 21. Grace Maher, who we've spoken about, still only like 22, 23. I could be wrong on that. Adelaide United bringing through some fantastic young players like Charlotte Grant. So fantastic to see that portion of it. A-League side of stuff, I've loved watching Louis Dorigo, who I've already met. Josh Nisbet at Central Coast has been a revelation. People like Connor Metcalf, whoever else for Melbourne City, for us locally as well, Bran. Kolakovsky and Tilio came off the bench and were superb last time out. So I'm just thoroughly enjoying the quality of play and the quality of youngsters that are coming through. That's my big highlight. My negative one, and I'm probably about to steal it from you guys because I'm sure we've all had the same issues at the moment, is the quality of the broadcast at the moment. Like, we just started doing our first kind of watch-along stuff for the A-League, and we're definitely going to try and do more of it because the overall consensus is that a lot of the football public's getting quite frustrated with it. To be clear, I like Brenton Speed. I like Andy Harper. I like Adam Peacock. And for better or worse, I think Bozza and Slater have done a lot for the game. However, the tangents that they go off, just talking about random shit that has nothing to do with anything at all, the way that they try and compare like Newcastle Jets to the plight of teams in other leagues across the world, that's nothing to do with anything. It's nothing to do with their league. There's so much fantastic stuff to be highlighted about the A-League. And unfortunately, I think at the moment they're just getting produced to try and kind of sweep the league under the carpet and to not provide the best viewing experience for a lot of their fans. So it's frustrating. Usually it would only be the Wellington commentators that I would have to mute each season because I found them very frustrating. But now it's pretty much everybody. There are some good, there are some shining lights. I think the Canberra United W League coverage has been excellent. Their teams that they've come through, the Adelaide stuff's been good. There's a couple of new faces in and around the Newcastle area as well that are doing some things that I haven't seen live yet, but hoping to check out in the next few weeks. So there are shining lights there, but really, like, Foxtel is just waiting for this TV rights deal to end, and the way that they're treating the game, the way they're respecting it, and the way that they're broadcasting it isn't. That's the biggest frustration of the season so far for us. So hopefully it's something, fingers crossed, that improves in the next few weeks, or hopefully our live streams kick off and people just watch the games listening to us talk about it. That would be absolutely perfect.
Rose, let's go to you now. What has been your favourite and your least favourite moment so far?
So my favourite has been the Central Coast Mariners were top of the table. I think it was over New Year's and for a very long period there. And I also enjoyed watching Ray Gatt enjoy how much they were on top of the table. And it's like every time any game was played, he'd be like, Mariners top of the table. He's so excited about it. So it's so good to see. I love it when, I think a team like that that's had so much success in the past, it's great to see them on the right path. So yeah, that's been really cool to see. The fans that have stuck by them through the really hard times are starting to see some really good stuff this season. So Mariners being top of the table into 2021 is definitely a big high for me. The worst for me, a low point, has been the bullshit excuses that I've been reading on the timeline about A-League fans supporting the W League. I cannot tell you how many excuses I have read for people not staying for both, the later kickoff times of the W League in Sydney and Newcastle that were played straight after the men's game. The amount of bullshit excuses I've heard, I'm just like, look, if you don't support the W League, you don't support the W League. Like, that's cool. It's not your thing. You don't have to say, oh, but I support women's football, but I left because of this reason. I've read a lot of bullshit, and I've started really getting honest with people, and to one person, and sorry if you're listening, I even said, with all due respect, that's a load of shit. So I'm getting really honest out there. But, it's because it's all about supporting our game, and like I said, you don't have to attend it if you don't want to attend it. But don't pretend like, you go and you attend, and yeah, just hearing a lot of bullshit about it, and I'm all for calling it out and just telling you to, just stick to the A-League. If that's what you're into, then just stick to it.
Yep, and coming to me, I was going to throw to myself. I don't know if I can, don't know how that quite works, but I was just sort of sitting there, I'm like, is anyone going to throw to me? And then I'm like, I've got to throw to me. I'm like, then how do I throw? Anyway, all this went through my mind in like a split second as well. So that was just great fun. So my favourite moment of the season, and it's a little bit of a weird one, but I think the governing body get a lot of flack, and justifiably so. But I've just been really happy with the way that the season has been able to operate so far. The fact that, the W League and the A League, when they first kicked off, there was all the schedule changes and all the restrictions in terms of New South Wales. I think they've done a fantastic job of being able to audible shuffle around plans and still put out a consistent product week in, week out in terms of games. Okay, yes, there are quite a few fixture quirks in the fact that, the Victory still, I think they've only played, the A-League side have only played one game, and Perth Glory only made their first appearance last night, while other teams have made 4. So the schedule is not perfect and it's not balanced, but I think the fact that they've been able to get out a consistent product and get things to work with the hubs, and now WA with those border restrictions and, the Glory travelling now, I think that deserves a heck of a lot of credit that the season has been able to operate relatively smoothly. So that's been my favourite part, because it just means that we get to watch great games. There's been fantastic A-League games, fantastic W League games. There's been bangers, there's been controversy, there's been meme moments. It's peak A-League, and it's fantastic. So that's been my my favourite part. The worst so far for me, it has to be the W League incident on the weekend, just stuff getting thrown on the pitch. Sean and Rose, you guys went into it in quite a lot of detail before, so I won't go over it again. Just echo a lot of those sentiments, just in the fact that it's not what we want to see as part of our game. You know, there's a lot of positives going on around football at the moment, and that is just a huge negative and a terrible look, and not at all the direction that we want our game or our active support or anything to go in. We don't want anything to do with it. But those are my favourite and least favourite moments of the year so far, which brings us almost to the end. The last segment that we're going to do here is a quick preview. So we're going to take a look at the W League and the A League games. We're not going to analyse each one. We'll read through them, and then I'll go ahead and get everyone's tips, if that sounds all right to you guys. So when we take a look at the W League, the first game coming up this week, we have Adelaide United taking on Melbourne City on Thursday night. We've got the Brisbane Roar taking on Melbourne Victory on Friday night. Newcastle Jets will face Western Sydney on Saturday afternoon, and Canberra United will take on Perth on Sunday. Sean, I'll throw to you. What are your tips in each of those games?
Adelaide, Melbourne City is a tricky one. I've said that I'm a big rap for Adelaide, but I think Melbourne City have some momentum, and I can't really bet against my own team. So I think City are going to scrape a victory based on the strength of their defensive structures. I think if they get McCormack, Johnson, and hopefully Emma Checker out for a longer spell, I think Adelaide will struggle to break them down, given the quality of that defence. And what we desperately need is Alex Chidiac to have another fantastic turn. Otherwise, it's going to be a bit difficult. I could see Adelaide getting something 100%, but I'm going to go with Melbourne City in that one. Brisbane Roar versus Melbourne Victory, a fascinating contest. I think Victory are going to win this, and I think Brisbane are going to continue to search for a win into 5 rounds, which I don't think any of us saw coming. Let me put this way. If Davana starts, I think Victory will win. If she doesn't play, I'm not sure if she was rested against City or was just rotated out of the side for other reasons, maybe injury, soreness, whatever else. That could be a challenge. But yeah, it should be a cracking contest on Friday night. Newcastle, Western Sydney, I'm going to go with the Jets at home. I've been impressed with the fight that they've put up. It's not that I'm not impressed with Western Sydney. They're an absolutely fine team, but they are a young team. And I think if they've got a Newcastle Jets side away from home and they're fired up and they've got Overlord Valente in the stands, that'll be enough to inspire the girls home to get the 3 points. And Canberra versus Perth, I'm thoroughly enjoying watching Canberra play every time that they are on the pitch at the moment, so I think they're going to get the 3 points against the Glory on Sunday afternoon.
Rose, sorry. How about you, Rose? What are your tips and predictions?
I'm petrified about Adelaide United and Melbourne City. City could destroy us. But you just cannot rule out Adelaide United this season, and if we come and do an absolute screamer, then I will kick myself. So I'm going for Adelaide United. Brisbane Roar, Melbourne Victory. I'm going to go Melbourne Victory. Brisbane Roar have got some work to do, and I don't think that they can get it done up against the Victory. Newcastle Jets and Wanderers, I think this is Newcastle Jets' moment. The last meeting, Wanderers did beat them. Rosie Galea was sensational that game. So I'm hoping Sonny Franco can get a goal going for the Jets. Canberra United, nope, that's not it. Yep, there we go. Canberra United, Perth Glory. Canberra United. I don't think Perth Glory. I hope Perth Glory can be competitive, but I don't think they can beat Canberra right now.
I'll throw to myself here for my tips. I'm picking Melbourne City against Adelaide United. I think Melbourne City will win. I agree with Sean, where I think it'll only be by a goal. This is the tip I'm probably least confident about, but we'll see how that one plays out. Brisbane Roar against the Victory. I'm tipping a draw. The Jets against the Wanderers. I'm also tipping a draw, and I think Canberra United will go out and beat Perth. Taking a look at the A-League fixtures coming up as well, we do have a Friday night fixture this week, which I'm very happy about. We've got Sydney FC taking on the Central Coast Mariners. On Saturday, we've got Western United taking on Perth Glory. Then Adelaide United facing off against the Melbourne Victory. On Sunday, the Wellington Phoenix will play the Newcastle Jets. And then midweek as well. On Tuesday, we'll have the Victory facing Perth Glory. Sean, I'll throw to you first again. What are your tips in these ones, mate?
Sydney FC Central Coast, I think, will be a draw. I'm enjoying watching Central Coast play. I think Josh Nisbet has been absolutely fantastic. I'm a big rat for him. I hope Alu Kowal plays up front. I think the Mariners are more fluid when he plays as opposed to Matt Simon, and I think Matt Simon became a distraction for a very young side this most recent game against Western Sydney, so I hope to get him back out there on the park. Western United versus Perth Glory is a tough one. I'm going to go Western United. I think Western United, they're going to get wins eventually. I don't 100% know where they're coming from. This game is, I believe, their first fixture at Amy Park as well as a home stadium. They didn't get a great attendance at the Melbourne City game that we were just at. They didn't fill the away bay, which obviously COVID restrictions come into that a little bit, the way that's kind of structured. But I'd love to see a bit more of a crowd for their next home match, and hopefully against Perth it'll be a cracking contest, given the amount they scored. Having said that, depending on how Perth's set up, they could go and score 5 goals again if they go super aggressive with it. We will see how that plays out. Adelaide United, Melbourne Victory should be a fascinating contest. I'm backing Adelaide United. Adelaide always seem to do well against the Melbourne sides. They consistently beat City when it's at Hindmarsh or Coopers or whatever you want to call it. I think they'll do the same against Melbourne Victory. Victory I wasn't super impressed with in their defeat to Brisbane. They'll need to bounce back, but I also don't think their structures and their setup are really going to put them in the best position to deal with Adelaide and a lot of the forward runs they've got. You mentioned Tommy Urich earlier, Rose, when we were talking about their previous game. They need to find out a way to get the best out of him. I've mentioned not playing Mork with him because I think they get in each other's way and he takes space away from Tommy Urich. But if they can get him linking up better with like Dukley and Halloran and all the other great young wingers they've got coming off the bench like Neon Gabiri and Strain and whoever else, then they'll be very, very good against Melbourne Victory. Wellington Phoenix versus Newcastle Jets. I am going to go a draw in that one. I haven't seen enough of Phoenix. They're probably the side that I've watched the least of because I didn't see Sydney and then play live. I just watched the highlights after. And then Melbourne Victory versus Perth Glory on Australia Day. I think it's going to be a high-scoring draw for both sides. It wouldn't shock me if that was like 2-2 or 3-3 or something like that. Both sides, I think, are weakest in defence and strongest in attack. So I'm pretty sure they're both going to go hell for leather. But having said that, Perth Glory have 2 Melbourne games in the space of a week. This is where we'll learn about their defensive structure and how they're going to play away from home. So if they set up shop a little bit deeper, a little bit less aggressive than they were last night, then yeah, it could be a bit more of a challenge for them. We'll see how they go, but those are my tips.
Rose, what are your tips?
Well, I'm going to go Central Coast Mariners up against Sydney FC. I'm going for the underdog because there's something about that fixture. It's always not always, but it's generally a really good fixture. And for some reason, the Mariners tend to have this belief that they can beat Sydney FC, and like they have in the past. Then I'm going to go for Perth Glory. I reckon Perth Glory against Western United. I think they'll just be on such a high. I think they'll be pumped to get out of their state because why wouldn't you? No, I heard Perth's a lovely place. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that they can do it. Adelaide United against Melbourne Victory. I'm going to go Adelaide United, again, home at Cooper Stadium. It is even though the atmosphere is going to be different, I do know for a fact that the atmosphere will be good because I realised as I was saying that, I'm not allowed to say anymore. It will be good. And Adelaide United generally do well at home against their rivals, being Melbourne Victory, and they'll be up for it and they'll need to redeem themselves after what was a terrible performance. Wellington Phoenix against Newcastle Jets. The Knicks are going to destroy them because the Jets are going to fold, apparently. Melbourne Victory against the A-League Jets can fold, but not the W League because I'm a real big fan. Melbourne Victory, Perth Glory. Let's go Victory. Why not? Yeah.
I cannot believe you left it until like the last 5 minutes of the podcast to throw a Fold the Jets reference in there. We're going to get absolutely trashed. We're going to get so many never tear us apart hashtags from Lucas Eade that we're going to be flooded with Twitter notifications. Sorry, Lucas. Lucas, you know we love you, but yeah, you know what it's like. And now we're going to throw to Bran for his picks for next week.
Thanks for throwing it. I had my soccer ball here. I was going to throw to myself, but you've thrown to me.
Sorry, man. I ruined your bit, and you've worked so hard on it.
No, that's right. But there we go. Thank you. I was going to say, we're not even lined up on the video screen. We couldn't do this, throw. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked here. My tips, let's have a look. Sydney FC taking on the Mariners. I'm tipping Sydney. Western United taking on Perth. I'll tip Western United. Adelaide against the Victory. I'll tip Adelaide. Wellington Phoenix taking on the Jets. That's a tricky one, but I'm going to anticipate that will be a draw. And then lastly, the Victory taking on Perth. I think Perth will win that one. But that, guys, that does bring us to the end of our podcast. We've spoken a lot about football this week. Not too many tangents. Plenty of football talk, which we always love. Rose, if people want to get in touch with you or find more information or more of your work, where can they hit you up?
Yes, you can find me at on Twitter at Ladies A League or at theladiesleague.com. Very exciting. I don't know if we'll be out before this or when the hell it'll be out. I'll be on a game of two halves this week. So it was really cool joining them for that. And it was also really cool listening to Simon Hill say my full name in his commentary voice, which was a childhood dream I was not aware of until it happened. So you can find all my work at the Ladies League.
Fantastic. Sean, what about you, mate?
Yeah, look, it's also a dream of mine since I was a young boy to have Simon Hill read my name out, but it hasn't happened yet. But maybe if you go and follow and I get some more supporters and fans over on Twitter at @InTheMixer_FM, he'll finally notice me and I might be able to get on the show as well. But if you want to check out all of our great content, we've just started doing live streams and stuff. We're playing Football Manager each Wednesday night on twitch.tv/The Reserve Team. You can check out on the YouTube channel if you're watching this one here, on Spotify or whatever podcast service you listen to as well. This podcast each week, we've got some additional great content coming up across the YouTube channel as well. So make sure you go and check out reserveteam.com.au for all your Australian New Zealand football needs.
Absolutely. There are plenty of fresh articles up on the website reserveteam.com.au. Go check it out. Like us on YouTube, like and subscribe. What else have we got to do? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're just across so many social media platform these days that it's tricky for me to remember all the plug in. I just realized a smarter host would probably actually write them down. I will do that for next week. I'll have them all written down, including the tag. This is the evolution of the reserve. Anyway, if people are interested in my stuff, I have got a bunch of articles up on the reserveteam.com.au, or you can find me on Twitter at Branson Gibson. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening as well. Make sure to hit us up with any thoughts that you have on any of the games, any of our hot takes, anything like that, or any topics that you think we should discuss going forward. But once again, thank you very much for listening and have a good one.